The cry in the dark, the alien forest, was quiet. Too quiet. The tall, twisted trees stood like silent guards under the pale moonlight. Cold mist wrapped around the roots and low branches, making every shadow look alive. Lena's heart moved carefully, her boots pressing into the damp ground without a sound. She had been walking for hours, searching for a mineral sample her research team needed. But now, something else had caught her attention. It was a sound, soft, thin, and trembling. A whimper, at first. She thought her mind was playing tricks on her, but then she heard it again, drifting between the trees like a weak cry for help. She stopped and tilted her head, listening. It wasn't human, at least. Not exactly. Her scanner gave a faint beep, but the reading showed no human life signs. Still, the sound made her chest tighten. It was like hearing a child cry in the dark. She switched off her flashlight to let her eyes adjust. The forest was bathed in silver light from the 2 moons above. The shadows shifted, and the mist seemed to breathe. The whimper came again, closer this time. Lena followed it, stepping over twisted roots and ducking under hanging vines. Every step she took made her feel like she was going deeper into another world, a world where she didn't belong, but she couldn't ignore that sound. The whimper turned into small, broken sobs. Lena moved carefully, her hand resting near her blaster, not to threaten, just to be ready. She pushed through a curtain of large leaves, and then she saw it. It was huddled under the roots of a giant tree, a small shape curled in on itself, trembling as if the cold was inside its bones. Its skin was pale with a faint shimmer, almost like soft pearl. Its eyes were big, too big for its small face, glowing faintly in the dark. The creature's long, thin ears twitched at her movement. It made a small, frightened noise and pressed itself tighter against the roots. Lena froze. Every instinct told her to move slowly. She had seen many alien creatures during her missions, but something about this one felt different. It didn't look dangerous. It looked scared, terrified. She took a step closer. The creature whimpered again, louder this time. Its little hands clutched the dirt, claws digging in as if it expected her to hurt it. Her heart clenched at the sight. She crouched down, lowering herself, so she wouldn't seem as big. Her voice was soft, careful. "Hey, it's okay," she whispered. The creature flinched, but didn't run. Oh. She remembered her training. Don't make sudden moves. Don't show your teeth. Keep your voice calm. Her hand reached slowly into her pack, pulling out a small light cube. She turned it on, letting its warm glow spread between them. The creature's glowing eyes reflected the light. It tilted its head slightly, still trembling but watching her now. Then Lena spoke a single word, one she had learned from an old alien language file on her ship. It was a word that meant safe. The moment the word left her lips, the creature froze. Its trembling slowed. Its glowing eyes softened. Something in its gaze changed, like it understood her. Lena stayed still. She didn't push closer. She let the silence settle. The creature sniffled, its chest rising and falling quickly. Then it made a soft sound back, almost like it was trying to repeat her word. It failed, the sound breaking halfway, but the attempt made her smile. It was enough to tell her this was no wild beast. This was a thinking, feeling being, and it was alone. She slowly placed the light cube on the ground. Then she pulled out a ration pack and opened it just enough for the smell to drift through the air. The creature's nose twitched. Its ears lifted slightly. It stayed under the roots but leaned forward just a little. The hunger in its eyes was clear. Lena gently pushed the ration toward it, inch by inch. The creature's tiny hands loosened their grip on the dirt. It took one cautious step, then another, but before it could reach the food, a sharp crack echoed through the forest. Lena's head snapped up. The sound had come from somewhere to her left, branches breaking under something heavy. The creature instantly froze and pressed itself flat against the ground. Its eyes went wide. Lena's stomach dropped. She could feel it. Now something else was here. Something big. The air felt heavier, thicker. The whimpering had stopped, replaced by a silence that made her skin crawl. Lena didn't move. She kept her eyes on the dark shapes between the trees. The forest was still. Too still. Even the mist seemed to pause. Then she heard its slow, heavy footsteps moving toward them. Whatever was making that sound wasn't trying to hide. It was hunting, and in that moment, Lena realized the creature's fear hadn't been about her at all. The creature's fear. Lena's breath formed small clouds in the cold air. Her fingers tightened on the blaster at her side. She didn't draw it fully, yet sometimes showing a weapon only made things worse. The sound of slow, heavy steps kept coming, crunching through dead leaves and snapping thin branches. It wasn't rushing. It was stalking, whatever it was. It knew they were here. The small alien under the roots was shaking again. Its glowing eyes darted from the darkness to Lena and back. She could almost feel its fear, like a cold wind brushing against her skin. It pressed its tiny body so close to the tree roots that its shoulders disappeared into the shadows. A soft whimper slipped from its throat, longer this time. It wasn't just scared. It was begging, silently, for her to do something. Lena lowered herself onto one knee. She kept her voice low, soft. "It's all right. I won't let anything hurt you," she whispered. The alien didn't understand the words, at least. Not all of them, but something in her tone made its ears twitch. Still, the fear didn't fade. Its tiny claws scraped at the dirt. It kept looking toward the sound. The steps had stopped, and that was worse. Silence could mean it had moved around them, or it was waiting. Lena slowly reached into her belt pouch and took out a heat sensor. She pointed it toward the trees. Faint red shape appeared on the small screen, large, hunched, moving slowly. Too big to be a normal forest animal. Her gut twisted. She had to think fast. She glanced at the alien again. Its breathing was fast and shallow. Its eyes glistened in the dim light. Lena noticed thin, jagged cuts along its arms. Some fresh, some older. Marks that looked too clean to come from wild branches, more like from metal or stone, and around its neck. A collar, not decorative, functional, the kind that didn't just hold it controlled. Her jaw clenched. She had seen collars like that before in the outer colonies. They were used by certain alien clans who captured creatures and either sold them or forced them to fight. If this little one had a collar, it meant someone owned it, someone who had heard it, and now? Maybe someone was hunting it down to take it back. A sudden sound snapped her focus, the crunch of leaves, this time much closer. Her hand finally wrapped around the blaster. The creature whimpered sharply and tried to retreat further under the roots, but then it froze again, staring at her. Its glowing eyes locked on hers, like it was trying to decide if it should trust her completely. Lena took a slow breath. She didn't want it running into danger, so she slid the ration pack toward it again. The smell drifted up, warm and savory. The creature's ears twitched, and despite its fear, its tiny body leaned forward. It sniffed, then looked at her once more, and for the first time, it moved closer on its own. Its steps were small and hesitant, but they were toward her, not away. When it reached the ration, it hesitated. Then it tore off a small piece and shoved it into its mouth. Its eyes closed for a moment, like the taste was something it had been craving for a long time. Lena felt a small smile pull at her lips. But it faded quickly when a low, rumbling growl rolled through the air. This sound wasn't from a human throat. It was deep, guttural, and full of hunger. The alien froze, mid-bite, its head jerking toward the noise. The growl came again, this time followed by the rustle of something huge moving between trees. Lena's instincts screamed at her to get the little one out of there. She scanned their surroundings. There was a narrow gap between two giant roots leading to a slope downhill. It would be risky. She didn't know what was down there, but staying here meant certain danger. She whispered the same alien word she had used before. Safe. The creature's ears perked at the sound. For a second, its trembling eased. Then another growl. Shattered that small comfort. No more time. Lena moved closer, holding out her hand slowly. "Come on," she whispered. The creature hesitated, looking at her hand, then at the trees, finally, with a shiver. It reached forward and touched her fingertips. Its skin was cool, softer than she expected. She gently wrapped her fingers around its small hand and pulled it toward her. It didn't fight. It let her lift it out from under the roots the moment it was in her arms. It buried its face against her shoulder, its tiny claws lightly hooked into the fabric of her jacket knot. To hurt, but to hold on, its small body shook with every breath. Lena could feel how light it was. To light, it hadn't eaten enough in a long time. She adjusted her grip, keeping her blaster in her free hand. Then, without looking back, she stepped toward the slope. The growl came again, closer now. Something large moved in the mist. Shadow shifted between the trees. She didn't wait to see it clearly. She ran. The hunt Lena's boots slid on the damp slope as she moved downhill. Her arms tightened around the small alien. Its light weight made it easier to run, but she could feel every shiver in its tiny body. The mist thickened, curling around her like ghostly fingers. Behind them, the forest was alive with sound, heavy steps pounding the ground, branches snapping like bones breaking, and the low, hungry growl that made her stomach twist. The creature in her arms let out a frightened whimper. Lena didn't need to look back to know the predator was closing in. The sound of its breath, deep and sharp, cut through the cold air. It was close enough now that she could hear the faint scrape of claws on stone. This wasn't just some wild animal wandering by. It was tracking them, and it wanted the small alien badly. She reached the bottom of the slope and stumbled into a narrow clearing. The moonlight spilled in, silver and cold. The trees stood further apart here. Good for moving quickly, bad for hiding. She scanned for any sign of shelter, a cave, a rock outcropping, even a hollow log. Nothing. The sound behind her grew louder. She could almost feel the ground trembling under its weight. Lena gritted her teeth and turned sharply toward a narrow path between two massive boulders. If she could get through there, maybe the predator would have trouble following. She dashed into the gap. Her shoulder brushed the cold rock. The alien clung tighter to her, pressing its head under her chin. "Hold on," she whispered, her breath warm against its skin. The passage twisted and narrowed. At one point, she had to turn sideways to squeeze through. Her pack scraped against the stone, making a harsh sound that echoed down the path. Then a thunderous crash behind them. The predator had reached the boulders. Lena didn't dare look back, but she heard the scrape of claws on stone and the heavy thud of something slamming into the rock. It was trying to push through, but the space was too tight. The growl turned into an angry snarl for a moment. Relief washed over her until she remembered predators don't give up easily. She hurried through the rest of the passage and emerged into another section of forest. This one was darker, the trees taller and closer together. The air here felt different, heavier, almost watching. She moved quickly, careful not to trip on the roots twisting across the ground. Every few steps, she glanced over her shoulder. No sign of the predator yet. But her gut told her it was finding another way around. The creature in her arms stirred. It looked up at her with wide, glowing eyes and made a small, urgent sound. Its hand reached toward a direction off the path. "You want me to go there?" Lena asked softly. It nodded, just a tiny movement, but it was enough. Trusting its instincts, she veered off the path into a denser part of the forest. The ground here was uneven. Covered in moss and fallen branches, her boots slipped once, nearly sending them both to the ground. But she caught herself and kept going. The forest was alive with faint noises, rustling leaves, snapping twigs, the distant call of night creatures. And then, in the distance, that growl again. Lena's pulse jumped. The sound was closer now. She didn't know how, but the predator was already on the other side of the boulders. It was smart, and it wasn't giving up. She spotted a cluster of massive roots from an ancient tree. Between them was a hollow space just large enough for the alien to hide. She stopped, crouched down, and gently placed the creature inside. Its eyes were wide and fearful, but it didn't cry. She raised a finger to her lips. "Quiet," she whispered. The alien nodded and pulled its knees close to its chest. Then Lena stepped back, blaster in hand, and turned toward the sound of approaching footsteps. The mist parted, and there it was. The predator was huge, easily twice her height. Its body was covered in thick, dark scales that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Its jaws were long, lined with sharp, uneven teeth, and its eyes. They were locked on her, but she noticed something. Its gaze kept flicking toward the roots where the alien hid. It wasn't here for her. She was just in the way. The beast let out a deep, vibrating growl and took a slow step forward. Lena's blaster hummed as it charged. "Not tonight," she muttered under her breath. The predator lunged. She fired. The bolt hit the ground just in front of its feet, sending a spray of dirt and smoke into the air. The beast recoiled with a sharp snarl, circling her like a wolf. She fired again, this time hitting a nearby tree trunk, making it splinter. The noise and light seemed to confuse it for a moment. That was all she needed. "Run," she called. The small alien darted out from the roots and into her waiting arms. She turned and bolted deeper into the forest. Behind them, the predator roared. The sound shook the trees, and Lena knew this hunt was far from over. The Bond Lena didn't stop running until her lungs burned and her legs felt heavy. The forest around her had gone quieter again, though the distant growls still echoed somewhere far behind. She slowed to a walk, her breath coming in sharp pulls. The small alien in her arms was still clutching her jacket tightly. Its head was tucked under her chin, hiding its face as if the world outside was too dangerous to look at. She glanced around and spotted a small rise in the ground where thick roots twisted together. Forming a natural barrier, it wasn't much, but it would give them cover. She stepped into the space between the roots and gently lowered the alien onto the mossy ground. It didn't move at first. Its arms stayed locked around her until she gave a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Only then did it let go slowly, like it feared she might disappear. Lena crouched, scanning the shadows beyond their little shelter. The forest noises were returning: chirps, distant calls, the rustle of wind through leaves. Maybe the predator had turned away for now, but she knew that wouldn't last. They needed rest, and the little one. It looked exhausted in the soft light filtering through the leaves. She could see it more clearly. Its skin was pale, but not from sickness. There was a faint shimmer, almost like moonlight was trapped under its surface. The collar around its neck seemed heavier up close. Thin lines of red marked where it had rubbed against the skin. She reached forward carefully, but the moment her fingers touched the metal, the alien jerked back with a sharp, panicked noise. Its ears flattened. Its eyes went wide. Lena pulled her hand back immediately. "All right. I won't touch it," she said softly. She could guess why it reacted that way. This collar came from slavers. Then it probably meant pain or control. Her stomach tightened at the thought. She took a small packet from her belt and opened it. A faint scent of roasted grain filled the air. The alien's nose twitched. It hesitated, glancing from the food to her. Then, slowly, it crawled forward on its knees and reached out. Its small hands trembled as it took the food. It sniffed, then took a tiny bite. Almost instantly, its expression softened. It chewed slowly, savoring every bit like it hadn't tasted anything this good in weeks. Lena smiled faintly. "You're safe now," she said. Even though she knew it might not understand the words, still. Her voice seemed to have some effect. The alien's tense shoulders eased slightly. It sat down in front of her, still nibbling at the ration. Every now and then it would glance up, studying her face as if trying to decide what she really was. She noticed something small but important. Its eyes weren't just glowing from reflection. There was life in them now. Less fear, more curiosity. It was the same shift she'd seen in scared children when they realized the adult in the room wasn't there to hurt them. The fire from her portable stove crackled softly as she prepared a bit of warm broth from her supplies. The alien watched every movement, head tilted when she handed the cup over. It took it carefully with both hands. Steam curled in the cool air as it sipped. The warmth seemed to make it relax more. It even made a faint, soft sound, not a whimper this time, but something almost like contentment. They sat together in the quiet for a while. Lena leaned back against the roots, keeping her blaster within reach, but letting her body rest. The alien finished its food and edged a little closer. She stayed still, letting it choose the distance. After a long moment, it reached out and touched the sleeve of her jacket. Just a light touch, like it wanted to be sure she was still real. When she looked at it, it quickly pulled its hand back. But the action made her heart tighten. This wasn't just an animal, it understood connection. It wanted it, even if it was afraid to take it fully. The forest light dimmed slightly as clouds drifted across the moons. Shadows stretched over their little shelter. Lena checked her wrist scanner. Temperature was dropping. She reached into her pack and pulled out a thermal blanket without a word. She unfolded it and draped it over the alien's small frame. It twitched in surprise, then stilled. Its hands clutched the fabric tightly. She whispered the word she'd used before. Safe. The alien's ears twitched. It blinked up at her. Then, to her surprise, made a soft sound back. It wasn't exactly the word, but it was close enough that she knew it was trying. A slow smile spread across her face. "That's right," she murmured. For the first time since she had found it, the alien didn't look ready to run. It settled beside her, its head resting lightly against her arm. Its breathing grew slower, more even, and Lena realized something important. She had only meant to rescue it from danger. But in this moment, she wasn't just its protector. She was the first person it had trusted in a long time. Above them, the forest sighed in the wind, but inside their small shelter, the air felt warmer. For tonight, at least, they had a bond, and Lena intended to keep it. The past revealed the forest was still in the early hours before dawn. A pale blue light began to creep between the trees. Lena sat against the roots with her blaster resting across her lap. She hadn't really slept. Her mind stayed half awake, listening for any sound of danger. The small alien was curled beside her under the thermal blanket. Its breathing was slow, peaceful, for a moment. She almost forgot about the predator still out there. But then her eyes fell on the metal collar around its neck. The faint scratches, the small burns along the edge of the skin. Those marks told a story even before she knew the details. And she didn't like the ending when the alien stirred. Lena spoke softly. "Morning," she said, offering a small ration biscuit. It blinked at her, yawned a sound that was surprisingly soft for a creature that had been hunted all night. Then it took the biscuit and nibbled it slowly. Its big, glowing eyes never stopped watching her. Lena decided it was time to try something. She pointed at herself. "Lena," she said clearly. Then she pointed at the alien. Tilting her head in question, the alien blinked, then hesitated. It touched its own chest lightly and made a sound. The word was short, almost like a breath. "Rin." Lena repeated it gently. Rin, the alien's ears twitched, as if surprised she could say it. Now that she had a name, the next step was harder. She pointed at the collar. Rin's entire body tensed. Its hands immediately came up to touch the metal as if shielding it from her. The soft glow in its eyes dimmed, replaced by a wary shine. "It's okay," Lena said quietly. She kept her voice calm, her movements slow. She didn't try to touch it again. Instead, she took out her small multi-tool and showed it to Rin, opening and closing the blade slowly so it could see. Then she mimed cutting something. Her gaze moved from the blade to the collar. "Off," she said. Rin shook its head quickly. Its breathing grew fast. Lena noticed its small claws digging into the dirt. It was terrified not of the collar itself, but of what might happen if it came off. That was when she realized this wasn't just a restraint. It was a symbol, a threat, maybe even a weapon. Whoever put it there had trained Rin to believe that removing it would mean pain, or worse, death. Lena's stomach turned cold. She knew the galaxy was full of cruel systems, but seeing the results sitting in front of her made her hands tighten around her multi-tool. She wanted to find whoever had done this, and she wanted to make sure they never did it again. She decided not to push. Instead, she tried another approach. Her ship's translator wasn't perfect, but it could pick up simple alien dialects. She tapped her wrist device and let it scan Rin's voice as she spoke a few words. When she said safe, the device glowed green. When Rin said its name, the device flashed amber. It was recording the sound patterns. Lena then said another word she hoped would connect home. Rin's ears twitched again. But this time, its gaze dropped to the ground. The word seemed to hurt, like it remembered something it didn't want to. She spoke softly. "You had a home, didn't you?" Of course, Rin couldn't understand the sentence, but it understood her tone. It let out a quiet, trembling sound. Then, to Lena's surprise, it reached up and touched its own chest before pointing toward the distance. Its hand shook as it did so. The gesture was clear. It had come from somewhere far away, and it had been taken. The mist in the forest was starting to lift now. Thin beams of early sunlight touched the mossy ground. Lena felt the warmth on her face, but couldn't enjoy it. Her mind was already turning over what she'd learned. Rin wasn't just a lost creature, was a stolen one. The collar marked it as property of someone dangerous. And if that predator last night had been part of a hunting party, then more might be coming. Rin made another small sound, this one sharper. Its hand tapped the collar twice, then pointed toward the forest again. Lena leaned forward. "You mean they're looking for you?" She guessed. The translator gave no direct confirmation. But the way Rin's ears folded and its shoulders hunched told her everything she needed to know. Lena took a deep breath. She had a choice. She could try to return to her ship now and get Rin off this planet before its hunters arrived, or she could dig deeper into this and find out who had done this to it. Her gut told her the second option was far more dangerous, but looking at Rin now, small and frightened, yet still clinging to the hope she offered, she knew she couldn't just walk away. She reached out slowly. Her fingers stopped just short of touching the collar. "Not today," she murmured. Rin's eyes flickered toward her face. Lena gave a faint smile. But soon, somewhere beyond the trees, a faint, distant sound cut through the stillness. Not the predator's growl this time. This was sharper mechanical engines. Lena's blood ran cold. They weren't alone anymore. The chasey sound of engines grew louder. It was faint at first, blending with the wind in the trees, but soon it was a low, steady hum, too smooth to be an animal, too mechanical to be anything natural. Lena's instincts told her exactly what it was. Someone was coming, and they weren't here for her. Rin had gone still. Its small ears twitched toward the sound. Its glowing eyes widened with recognition and fear. It made a short, sharp sound and pointed toward the deeper forest. "Yeah," Lena whispered. "I hear it too." She didn't waste another second. She grabbed her pack, slung it over her shoulder, and motioned for Rin to follow. At first, Rin hesitated. Its eyes darted between her and the noise. But when the hum turned into the clear whine of engines dropping closer, it rushed to her side. They moved quickly, weaving through the tall roots and thick undergrowth. Every few steps, Lena glanced up. Thin shafts of light broke through the canopy. Somewhere above, the faint outline of a small craft slid between. "The clouds, they're scanning," Lena muttered under her breath. She knew that meant they had heat sensors and motion trackers sweeping the area. If the hunters spotted Rin, they'd drop in fast, and if the predator from last night was still nearby, they'd be trapped between two deadly threats. The forest floor grew steeper as they ran. Roots twisted across the slope like traps, waiting for a misstep. Rin was quick and light, but Lena had to push hard to keep up. Her boots slipped once, and she caught herself on a low branch. The engines above shifted position. Moving ahead of them now, they were being herded. That was bad, very bad. She slowed for a moment and scanned the area. The terrain here dipped into a narrow canyon carved by an old river, a risky path. They went down there, the hunters could box them in nicely. But if they stayed up here, they'd be in plain sight from above, down, she decided, pointing. Rin didn't question her. It slid down the loose dirt like it had done this before. Lena followed, feeling the earth shift under her boots. The canyon was damp and shaded. Moss covered the walls, and a faint trickle of water ran through the middle. The air smelled different, here, heavier, almost metallic. They moved fast, but the sound of the engines stayed close. Then Lena heard something else, a faint clicking. Slow and deliberate, her stomach sank. That wasn't mechanical, that was claws on stone. She stopped suddenly, raising her hand for Rin to halt. The clicking grew louder, echoing off the canyon walls. Rin's small hands clenched into fists. It knew the sound too, from the shadows ahead. Movement stirred the predator. Its huge, scaled body slid into view, blocking the path forward. Its glowing eyes locked on Rin instantly, ignoring Lena completely. The growl that rumbled from its chest was deep enough to make the ground under them vibrate. Lena's mind raced. They were trapped hunters above, predator ahead. Canyon walls too steep to climb fast. Rin took a step back, pressing against her leg. She steadied her grip on the blaster. "We're not dying here," she muttered. The predator stepped closer. Its massive claws dug into the wet stone. Its nostrils flared, catching Rin's scent. Then, from above, the hum of the engines grew. Sharper, closer, the hunters were dropping in. A shadow passed overhead. Lena glanced up to see the belly of a small black ship sliding over the canyon. A hatch opened, and ropes dropped down. Figures in dark armor began descending. "Move!" Lena shouted. She fired a bolt into the ground between the predator and Rin. The blast made the beast recoil for just a second. It was enough. She grabbed Rin and ran toward a narrow crack in the canyon wall she'd spotted earlier. The space was small, too small for the predator to fit. They squeezed inside. The stone scraped Lena's shoulders as they pushed through. Behind them, the predator let out a furious roar. The sound bounced off the canyon walls and mixed with the shouts of the hunters. The crack opened into a small, hidden chamber. Lena crouched low, pulling Rin close. They stayed quiet as heavy footsteps landed nearby. The hunters had reached the canyon floor through a thin slit in the rock. Lena saw them, 3 figures in black armor, scanning the area with glowing visors. One of them pointed toward the predator. Even from here, she could see the tension in its body as it turned. Its anger toward the intruders, The hunters raised their weapons. The predator roared and lunged. The canyon exploded into chaos blaster fire. Snapping jaws, the sharp screech of armor being torn. Lena didn't waste the moment. She gripped Rin's hand and guided it deeper into the narrow passage. They moved quickly, the sounds of the fight fading behind them when they finally emerged. Into the open air again, Lena's chest was tight. The forest stretched ahead, silent except for the distant echoes of battle. They had escaped, for now. But she knew both the hunters and the predator would be back on their trail soon. She knelt in front of Rin. Its glowing eyes looked scared but determined. She whispered the one word it understood: safe. It nodded, but the look in its eyes said it knew the truth. Safety was only temporary. The real fight was still coming. The gentle word the forest was darker now. Clouds had swallowed the moons, turning the world into a place of shifting shadows and faint silver outlines. Lena pushed forward, her muscles aching from hours of running. Rin stayed close. It's small. Steps, quick but silent. They had been moving without rest, trying to stay ahead of the hunters and the predator. But the truth pressed on her mind: they couldn't keep this up forever. She stopped at the edge of a wide clearing. The trees here leaned away from the center, as if something powerful had forced them back years ago. The ground was uneven, littered with strange, blackened stones. Her instinct screamed that this was a dangerous place to cross. But the longer they stood still, the closer their enemies would get. Then she heard it. A low growl from somewhere behind. It wasn't far this time. The predator had picked up their trail again. And above, the faint hum of vengeance returned. Her chest tightened. They had been found from both sides. "Rin," she whispered. Crouching down to meet its eyes, it was breathing fast, its glowing gaze darting from the shadows behind them to the open clearing ahead. She reached out and gently touched its shoulder. "We can do this. But you have to trust me, of course." The words themselves meant little to it, but her tone carried the meaning. The growl grew louder, joined by snapping branches. The predator was coming fast. Lena pulled Rin toward the center of the clearing. The open space would give her a better shot, but it also meant they'd be exposed. She heard the hum of the hunters' engines shifting above. A spotlight beam sliced through the clouds. Sweeping across the trees, they were seconds from being trapped. The predator broke through the tree line first, its massive form hunched low, muscles rippling under its scaled hide. Its eyes locked on Rin instantly. It didn't charge right away. It was savoring the moment, knowing there was no escape from the other side of the clearing. 3 black-armored hunters stepped out of the shadows. Their weapons glowed faintly in the dark. One of them spoke in a language Lena didn't recognize, but she didn't need. 2, the meaning was clear in their body language. Hand over the creature, or die. The predator snarled at the hunters, and they shifted their aim toward it. Lena's mind raced. Both threats wanted Rin. Neither cared if she lived or died. And Rin stood frozen between them, its small hands clenched, eyes wide. The collar around its neck glinted in the spotlight beam. Lena stepped in front of Rin, raising her blaster. Her voice cut through the chaos. "Not happening," she said. The predator roared and lunged. The hunters opened fire. Blaster bolts tore through the clearing, lighting it in bursts of blue and red. Rin cried out. Covering its ears from the noise, Lena turned, kneeling beside it in the middle of the chaos. She did the one thing no one expected. She put her blaster down. She placed both hands on Rin's small shoulders. Its eyes locked on hers. Trembling, she spoke the word she had taught it from the very first night. Safe. The sound seemed to cut through everything, the growls, the gunfire, even the roar of engines above. Rin's breathing slowed. Its fear shifted into something else. Its glowing eyes began to shine brighter. Lena felt a faint hum under her hands, as if the air itself was responding to the word. Rin turned toward the predator. The glow in its eyes grew until it was almost blinding. It let out a sound louder than any she had heard from it before. The noise wasn't a cry of fear. It was deep, commanding. The predator stopped mid-charge, claws digging into the dirt. Its massive head lowered slightly. For the first time, it looked unsure. The hunters hesitated, their weapons lowering a fraction. One shouted something to the others, but none of them moved forward. The sound Rin made rose in pitch, vibrating through the air. Lena felt the hairs on her arms stand up. It was as if the entire forest was listening. The predator backed away a step, its eyes flicking between Rin and the hunters. Then, with a final snarl, it turned and vanished into the shadows. The hunters cursed, shifting their aim back to Rin. But before they could fire, Rin lifted its small hands and let out another sharp call. A sudden wind burst through the clearing. Leaves and dust whipped into the hunters' faces. They staggered back, blinded. Lena grabbed Rin's hand and ran. Pulling it toward the far edge of the clearing, the noise of engines faded behind them. The hunters weren't following at least not right away, when they finally stopped to catch their breath. Lena crouched beside Rin. She searched its face for signs of fear. But what she saw was different. It was tired, yes, but in its eyes there was a quiet strength now. The same creature that had whimpered under a tree root was now something else. Entirely, Lena smiled faintly. "You were never helpless, were you?" she said softly. Rin tilted its head. It didn't understand all her words, but it understood the one that mattered. It whispered back to her clear, this time, safe. They stood there for a moment, the forest around them settling into quiet again. Lena knew they weren't out of danger. The hunters would be back, and the collar still needed to come off. But tonight, something had changed. One gentle word had turned fear into courage, and now they would face whatever came next together.